Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three in.
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday. It's January 10th, and very special day. K-Bro's back in the house for a special return engagement. We cannot be happier. Kevin Brockway, how are you, sir? There you go, little K-Bro action.
Oh, my goodness. It's good. It's good to be here. What a game last night, huh?
Yeah, for all of 60 seconds.
Yeah, I know. What ridiculous. By the end of the game, TCU didn't even want to tackle. I don't know if you saw, it was just like Matador defense in the fourth. They didn't want any part of Georgia. They were just, it was just a street fight, and they were, knocked out in the eighth round,
Eighth. More like the second or third, man. That was ugly. That was UGLY. Ugly.
Yeah,
it was. And I'm wondering, mate, did we get gypped? Because I was wondering, are we going to get a game like we got with the two other national semis, which were freaking awesome? No, not even close. I mean, it was ugly. It's not even fun to watch. My first question is, do you think the 12-team playoff will eliminate a game like that?
You would hope. And I made this point to, hello, Kevin, but I made this point to, John off air about this year. And I was saying this back in December. They didn't want the Ohio State-Michigan rematch at 2-3. But for the integrity of the process, they should have dropped TCU to 4 and had Georgia. And then we could have maybe had a more epic Georgia-Ohio State national championship game. Now, it might not have turned out that way. Everything is different. Every situation is different with 1 week of preparation as opposed to 3. But I still think that they messed up there. And I'm not saying that Alabama should have been in there. A lot of people are saying that. I thought TCU was deserving, but they should have dropped the spot after losing to Kansas State. And, but they didn't want to do it because they didn't want the Ohio State-Michigan rematch. Well, it's the integrity of the process should outweigh that. And the integrity of the process was, if you looked at Ohio State's resume compared to TCU's resume, 2 1-loss teams, Ohio State had the better resume on paper. The eye test are the better team. They should have been the 3 seed.
I do not disagree. But hopefully starting in 2 years from now, we won't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah.
With the advent of the 12-team playoff, I think I think that is going to prevent games like that, because if you're able to, once you're able to get to that championship game, you're battle tested. And not that TCU didn't play a hell of a schedule, but it's different when there's 6 weeks difference, and then 1 week, like you just mentioned, there's 6 weeks apart, and then there's 1 week apart. It's all wonky. It'll be a little bit more confluent in just going together. I think it'll be a lot better, and I'm looking forward to it.
Some of it's cyclical too, Jim, and I think the SEC's obviously won 13 of the last 17. I mean, Georgia, before that Alabama, you have 2 programs that are obviously, head and shoulders above the rest. But we saw this growing up with the Super Bowls. I mean, the NFC dominated from the mid 80s to the early 90s, and there were some dog Super Bowls. I was going over this with John off air too. I mean, I remember, I think San Francisco beat Denver like 50-something to 7, and the Redskins blew out Denver one year in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, it's really been only the last 20 years that the NFL has figured it out, where you've had really good Super Bowls too. So, I don't know. Maybe the 12th team.
Baseball's All-Star games has been one-sided. It was one-sided one way, and then it was one-sided the other way.
Exactly. So, maybe expanding it to 12. I mean, the NFL has 14 now. Maybe that works too. But this was obviously, I think, like I said, the committee missed on the seeding, I think, with 1 to 4. But, going to 12, hopefully that'll eliminate it. And then if you have a team like, say, an Alabama in there that's peaking at the end of the season and playing really well, they'll motor through there and they'll get to the championship game. And then you'll, maybe have, a championship game that's a lot more competitive. I mean, it'll still tick people off because there'll be 2 SEC teams, right? But, but maybe that'll change 5 or 10 years down the road with NIL, and you'll start to see other conferences catch up, like the ACC and the Big Ten.
Do you think because that football is the hardest thing to get turned around? I mean, basketball, you can turn a basketball program around in a season right now. 1 year, boy, you could come in and bam, bring the right pieces in and you can turn it around. Football, that's almost impossible to do. I know that Kansas had this big miraculous turnaround, but I don't know that had anything to do with NIL.
TCU was 4-8 last year. I mean,
that's a hell of a jump going 4-8 to the national championship game.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it depends on the circumstance. I think it's a lot harder to turn it around in a conference like the SEC as opposed to maybe like the Pac-12 or the Big 12, conferences that don't have traditional heavyweights right now.
What about Indiana and the Big Ten? You've been down in SEC country now for all this time. What about, you just cannot be at the bottom of the pack in football year after year, and especially in a conference that is one of the 2 leading conferences. You have to rise up and get your piece here and there.
Get this, Jim. Another thing I tweeted last night. Guess who's 12-1 to win the Heisman next year? Michael
Penix Jr.
is 12-1. Guess who had a sack the other night in the Giants-Eagles game? Micah McFadden. Maybe that group was kind of like a once-in-a-generation talent when you look back on it, 2019, 2020, guys like Penix, McFadden.
It wasn't the coaching that had gone into it.
They obviously recruited really well. Tom did, and a mix with Kevin Wilson, some of Kevin Wilson's guys that were left over too. I mean, Nick Westbrook, right? What's his hyphen name now? I mean, he's on the Titans. So, I mean, you had guys in 2019, 2020 that were pretty good, really good. And then 2020 was a COVID year. You kind of
Peyton Hendershot
is with the Cowboys, and Freifogel. I don't know if Freifogel made it, but yeah, you had some dudes, and now there's been a drop off. But
also, I think that the biggest thing is Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, I agree.
Kalen DeBoer.
Or how about Kane Womack? I mean,
I was going to say, and Kane Womack. I mean, both these guys have gone on and are having successful runs as head coaches. It was a gigantic drop off losing Kalen DeBoer. I mean, that was just like a kick in the sack.
Oh, no question. And, obviously Nick Sheridan struggled. They thought he would grow into the job. That didn't work out. And
I didn't.
Walt Bell, I mean, he was up and down. I mean, they scored some points last season, right, against some teams. I mean, they had more issues stopping people, I thought, than anything else.
The change in the offensive line that came way too late, but there was obvious growth at that position when they made that change late in the season. But they also went to it was a different quarterback with a different style that was much more running style, but they hadn't been able to run the damn ball all year long. All of a sudden, with a quarterback that could run, it opened up things a little bit. This offensive line got a lot better under Rod Carey.
Yeah, no, and I mean, hey, maybe there's hope on the horizon. I don't know what, Dexter Williams, again, tore his ACL. Michael Penix tears his ACL. Matthew Bedford. It's like that Charlie Brown thing, man. I mean, if it wasn't for pulling the football away, I mean, they've had a lot of bad luck with injuries too. And football is an injury sport, but it's been pretty tough on Indiana because they just don't have the depth.
If it wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all.
Yeah.
Let's see. Indiana basketball, Jalen Hood-Schifino, freshman of the week in the Big Ten. First time Indiana has had a freshman of the week this year. First time, I'd have to go back and look. When was the last time Indiana had a freshman of the year? Did any of the guys, freshman of the week, rather, my bad. But after his 33-point performance, that was the most points by an IU freshman since 2007 with Eric Gordon.
Pretty good. But you want to know what was interesting? I saw in the Northwestern game, and I did not watch the game. I just looked at the box score, but the one thing about Hood Schifino that you're seeing, and part of the growing pains, is 3 to 6 assist to turnover ratio. And it seemed like they had a lot of loud turnovers on that game based on the box score, did they not? I mean, they gave up a lot of. They must have given out a lot of runouts in that game, and
it was a bad start. Jalen Hood-Schifino, Indiana had their first 5 turnovers in the first 10 minutes of the game were all from Jalen Hood-Schifino. He had, but I've never seen a stat like 24-0 on points off of turnovers. And it was 24-0. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And they were -9 at the free throw line. I'm like, guys, that's 3 points right there. How you win the game giving away 33 points?
Sounds like a toughness problem and like not getting after it on defense. And I wonder, and I've tweeted this, and some people have taken issue, I'm beginning to wonder how much they missed Dane Fife on that bench.
I've never said that, but what I do say and ask and wonder and question and don't understand is teams are a reflection of their head coach. If your coach is a prick, arrogant, there's probably going to be some arrogance on that team. If they're tough, real tough, you're going to see some tough guys on that team. Mike Woodson played for the ultimate tough guy coach. Not that he tried to make guys tough or tell them to be tough. They just ended up that way, going through the practices and all that, and playing hard and having to earn their minutes. I don't see that. It's a completely different coaching style. They are 180 apart, and that's fine. I'm not saying that you need to be like one the other, but there has to be some of it in you. When you're questioning toughness, which rightfully so. This team does not have toughness. They're not tough. They're not a team that's going to win games at the end because they don't have that toughness. But anyway, the point I was making, I'm surprised that with Mike Woodson being the coach, that is the case. It just surprises me.
It does sound like, there's no, I heard that comment, there's no rocket science. You got to work harder. I think he recognizes what the problem is. And he's just got to fix it. I think that's the thing. And I mean, I watched that Iowa game down the stretch. Fran McCaffrey should have been teed up. I mean, that was ridiculous that he went over the other sideline and there was no repercussion. And maybe they didn't do it because maybe the Indiana staff member baited him. I don't know, but
you already call it. How do you rescind the technical?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I saw the guy, signal it. But, at the same token, and I know, look, Trace played and maybe he was tired, but he's a senior. He's got to hit those free throws too. He hits those free throws, then you're in a, you're in at least a tie game going to overtime there when you miss those 2 down the stretch and just go 1 for 2 on those 2 trips.
But the Northwestern game, that was one where, Northwestern, a team that this was a David and Goliath. David comes out, kicks David in the shin, and then punches him in the chin when he bends over. That's what happened in that game. And they just kept kicking him in the shin and punching him in the chin the whole night.
These are guys that some of Indiana's players, the ones that are going to make the NBA, are going to be working for in 5 or 10 years. Northwestern, I mean, come on, this is like
someone said that yesterday. I forget
you shouldn't be losing to Northwestern in Assembly Hall, and you shouldn't be losing to a bad Iowa team on the road too, and blowing that lead. And I know Race we're hearing about the injuries, we're hearing about Race and Xavier, but they have depth there with Geronimo. I mean, Geronimo was on the come last year.
Supposed depth. Supposed. That's the whole point.
Malik is supposed to be a 5-star, 4-star freshman.
You're using the great words now. Supposed to be. Not the case. But we got to take a break because our good friend Mike DeCourcy joins us next from as BTN analyst and, of course, senior writer from the Sporting News. Brought to you by our good friends from Endeavor Hospitality and the WOW Club. Don't forget to make sure you go to Endeavor Hospitality, mywownetwork.com, and sign up. And it's totally free to sign up for. Start earning WOW rewards today. WOW Club members earn exclusive discounts, dining dollars to spend, and more sent directly to your mobile phone. all part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club and group of great restaurants in and around the Bloomington area. Places like BB's Market, where if Kevin would ever come up, let me tell you, you want to talk about an eating SOB, this is him right here.
We had a cookout last night for the bowl game, and I think I overdid it because I woke up in I had to take a little Pepto-Bismol, actually. You know?
If you overdid it, I cannot imagine that case. But if we could get Kevin into BB's, we get Chef JD to set him up, man. You would be in freaking heaven doing the show there. Oh, I'm not kidding, because JD be bringing stuff out to you, Chef JD. Be bringing stuff out to you all day, but we'll be back out there this Friday. I'm looking forward to it, but I can't wait. Make sure if you're in and around Bloomington to stop in. They are your local neighborhood meat butcher, whatever you need. And a new restaurant going in there too called the Butcher's Cut. I can't wait for that thing to open. We're back with Andy Moore Honda. AndyMooreHonda.com is where you go to find the greatest deals in new and used vehicles. Right now, you can probably get great deals on some 2022s. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with K-Bro and Mike DeCourcy right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
That's a good idea. They should have used a running clock. That's what
we were saying in the second half. Yeah. When's the running clock going to start?
That's funny, but a good one.
Yeah, we had burgers and hummus and.
Wait a minute. Well, who did the cooking? Because I know it wasn't you.
My friend Edgar. Yeah, he had the grill. So yeah.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't you cooking.
All right, Mike, you can give it to me about the Steelers and the Jets now. You know.
I was just going to say, I am not speaking to you. We just do one thing.
Oh yeah, I know, right? It's not my fault they decided to start Joe Flacco, you know.
Oh, so what's his name available?
Zach Wilson was, yeah.
Oh my God, this is why they're the Jets.
Yeah, and Mike White was not though. Mike White had.
Yeah, I know he was hurt. I knew he was hurt, but I didn't know whether Wilson was available. And I don't know
why.
Maybe
they didn't want to get Zach Wilson hurt. I don't know. Like I was thinking, I was trying to think, what was the reason why they would start him?
Yeah, I did not understand that.
You want to know what? There was actually a really bad. If you were a Steeler fan and watching it, there was a really bad horse collar penalty.
I saw it,
and it was not a horse collar.
You know, Kevin, when I saw that, I'm like, my initial thought was, do I not understand the rule? Yeah. Because I thought you had to get up to the pad level.
Yep.
And so, and the officials, I mean, the announcers didn't even,
address it.
I'm like, I must not understand.
The jersey. He didn't come close to the collar.
I know. I
think
when
they
that
wanted
happened,
to get the game over with. That was my thing.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't want to stick around for overtime. They must have had a tea time somewhere, or dinner plans, or
flight.
That game was not going to end if they didn't get in field goal range.
No. I mean, without that penalty, it probably goes to overtime. And
it was
there were so many bad calls. The NFL officiating has gotten so awful.
Yeah,
the Steelers were playing against the Browns, and Deshaun Watson as a runner that day was amazing. I mean, they couldn't bring him down. They really struggled. And so they finally get him and they tackle him without falling on him or anything like that. But because he hit the ground hard, they called a roughing the passer penalty. Cam Hayward put him down. And it's like, how are you supposed to play football if he doesn't relent when you tackle him? So you have to tackle him.
Yeah, it was just so bad.
All right, here we go, guys.
Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday, January 10th. I hope you're having a good start to your week. We are a little bonus, got a little K-Bro action today, returning to the show, and it's time for Mike DeCourcy. So, man, what a combination this is. All I kept thinking was, the Steelers and the Jets. Dun, 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 dun. So did the Steelers lose to the Jets?
No.
Or did the Jets just not win a game?
The Jets needed to beat Miami, and if they had, the Steelers would have gotten into the playoffs. And it went down to a final field goal, and so it came that close to the Steelers needed the Bills to beat New England. They needed to beat the Browns themselves. Those two things happened. But the one that was always dicey was whether the Jets could go down to Miami and win. Miami was severely impaired down to their third quarterback.
I was going to say, wasn't this like backup quarterback you or something?
Third quarterback, and they were down to that. And then as well as that, they had multiple key players out. And it was close, but as we were saying during the break, the Dolphins got a huge break on a terrible horse collar tackle call. Honestly, Jim, as I watched the play, the Miami the Miami ball carrier was pulled down by a Jets defender, and he basically grabbed the back of his jersey and pulled him down. I believe it was Tyreek Hill that he pulled down, and I at that point I thought, well, I must not understand the rule, because I thought you had to grab him up by his pads, and I thought that was the rule. But apparently, according to those officials who aren't any good at their jobs and yet stay in the NFL, the highest league in the world, if it just looks like it's bad, then you flag it. I guess there were so many bad calls in Sunday's games, not just the Steelers game, but like across the board, that it's amazing to me that the NFL does not take any action, any effort to try to fix their officiating program, because it's that bad. It's the richest league in the world, and yet they do nothing, nothing significant to address what I believe to be the worst officiating of a major sport.
There's a lot of Big Ten fans that'll disagree with you on that, but the fact that I've been talking about this of late, officiating in Big Ten basketball is just horrific. There's no consistency. I truly wonder if the game would be better off if you let players call the foul. I'm like, you know what? I think that there would be more consistency if you let them call them, or either way. And if there's a dispute, go to the monitor. Hell, they spend half their time there anyway. So I'm like, let the players call the fouls. It'll speed the game up.
Come on, Jim. You've been on the playground. That never speeds the game up.
It wouldn't have used to, and I agree with that. But now I'm like, yeah, I think it's getting close to that Mendoza line of beakling out. I'm like, man, it's gotten to that point to where it's that bad. They're horrible. And I don't know. Officials today seem to be, for the most part, a lot younger, like everything. I think back to the Big Ten back in the late 90s or whenever, on the officials, those guys were all veterans. I can't think of the names, but I remember, I can see their faces. These guys had been around, man, for a while, for the most part.
I will agree with you on that, Jim, but I think we tend to sort of glorify the past, because there were, I remember the days when people, the public would vilify guys like Ed Hightower or Jim Burr or someone like Tim Higgins or whatever. And there were moments when all of them failed because that's the nature of the business.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I don't know if it's better or worse now than it was then.
Well, I'm wondering because of replay, and it's always in the back of their mind. They know replay's there. I don't know, and you don't know how it affects anybody, because it's probably different each time. But that's there, and there's no way that doesn't affect things.
For basketball, the replay is pretty limited for what you can use it for. It's mostly out of bounds plays, and
which makes it worse.
Well, I mean, I will say, I tweeted this. I was watching New Mexico play on Saturday night against Vegas, and there was one toward the end where it was so like first replay. Oh, it's obvious, and it's like, oh no, we got to watch a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth. I mean, like, it wasn't even close, and they got it right on the initial whistle, and so it's like, do we really have to sit here? And I tweeted, and I was pretty proud of this tweet. I said, at the end of my life, I should get back all of the time I have spent watching officials look at replays that were obvious. I said I'd live another 3 years.
I was going to say that's
the truth. It's one thing to be looking at a difficult play, but it's another totally to be looking at something just because you feel compelled to not look at the obvious angle that makes it obvious that you were right in the first place.
Here's something that I noticed that SEC refs do, and I didn't notice as much in the Big Ten, but I was watching a game the other night, Florida, Texas A&M. Pretty bad call on Colin Castleton. Looked like he had a clean block. They called it on him. Other end of the floor, touch foul. I think the refs realized they missed it, called it the makeup calls. Yeah, I didn't really see that as much in the Big Ten as I did in the SEC, but that's kind of a way to remedy it too, I think sometimes.
It's a time-honored tradition in all sports, the officials who do that, because they do you do know when you miss a call, like just like when you're on the air, you do know when you made a factual error, and then when do I correct it, or you do know when you like I was saying Peyton. What I was trying to say on Big Ten, and I think it was on Beyond, when I tried to say Peyton Sanford stood forward or something like that, or stepped up. So I got the ST and the SA mixed up. So I knew immediately I had made an error. So I corrected myself. I said Peyton Sanford or whatever. So when you made an error, and officials are the same way. Like they blow the whistle, and it's like, and then they know they have to make a call, and that. So then you make the call that would ordinarily follow, and then you realize that you shouldn't have blown the whistle. It was an instant reaction. You were ahead of yourself, and so they know. And so I'm not totally opposed to the idea of using that technique of the makeup call to even things out.
Well, they're paid well. They're paid well. Their travel, all of that. I don't understand why more isn't done to make them better. More study. They should be doing more study. Every game should be looked at, and horrific calls. You got to look at that and say, all right, can you kind of explain to me? And if he just says, I screwed up, I missed it, bam, you're done. You move on. But if he doesn't say I missed it, explain to me why you made this call.
Jim, I think there's more of that than you realize. If you talk to people who have done that job, officials coordinator, whether it's at the conference or the national level, and John Adams here in Indianapolis.
I was getting ready to say, John, right here in Indy has done that.
He's terrific. And he knows the game really. I mean, he knows the game really well, and he knows officiating really well. And he's a great guy, and he's a great resource. And so, excuse me, they do a lot of work to try to make officials better. I went to I guess it was probably before the pandemic. So it's probably the fall of 2019 that I went to they do these regional clinics for officials. And there were and because it was one here in there's a lot of officials in the area, and it's easy to get to. And so there was probably, I guess, man, it must have been 200 at least officials in the room for this. And I was there, and Fran Fischilla was there. And LaFonso Ellis was there from the media. We were all there. And so they went through all this. And part of it is that the training itself is not what, they're training them to be wrong in some instances, what I would say. And I'll give you, and I don't mean this, that's not generally true, but the block charge call, the training is to be wrong. So, because they would show a play on the screen, and block or charge, and like of the officials in the room, if I'm right about the number 200, like 190 hands would go up in the air when whoever it was that was running the clinic at the time, J.D. Collins or whoever, would say, okay, was that a block or a charge? 190 hands would go up that would say it was a charge. And well, was it a block? And it's like me and 7 other people, I mean, because that's the way they're oriented to think that it's a charge, because that's the way they believe the rule should be adjudicated. So it's not necessarily that they're not trained. In some instances, that one in particular, they're trained to be incorrect because the rule is oriented, or their interpretation of the rule is oriented toward the defense. That everything is a charge, so to speak. But in general, they're very well trained. They have constant updates on different situations. They send them video through obviously the internet's a great distribution tool for that. But where it's lacking is in discipline, I guess I would call it. That if you screw up badly, you screwed up badly. You don't get fined. You don't get docked games. I mean, it's so. Where's the like if you're a basketball player and you go 0 for 8 from 3-point range, even though your coach is telling you don't take the 3-point shot because you're not making them, what happens? You get benched. If you're a coach who
play for Indiana,
if you're a coach who goes 0 for like Bryce Drew did at Vanderbilt a couple of years ago, and he didn't win any SEC games, he loses his job, even though he's a pretty talented coach and a pretty good guy. But he had a bad year, so they let him go. But officials, it doesn't, you don't see the same level of accountability with officials as you do with the competitors. And I think that's where the problem is most evident. We see that in all levels of officiating.
Is it because there's a scarcity of good ones, though? Like, and people aren't lining up to do the job. It's a lot different than, people wanting to be a head coach for 6 or 7 figures too.
Well, but Kevin, you've been to basketball to like AAU tournaments or high level camps, and like there those guys and ladies, they want to be D1 officials because it pays well and they like doing it and all that. I mean, I think there is I'm not going to say there's not a scarcity of good ones. But we're not talking about getting rid of the good ones. We're talking about either making the mediocre ones good or getting rid of the bad ones. That's the question. And that's the thing that doesn't happen. And, baseball fans, I won't name him. You could if you want, but there's a umpire who has like his own social media because he's so bad that he has, there are people who are dedicated to showing everybody how bad this particular umpire is. That we've all seen that sort of thing over the course of covering college sports, professional sports.
Bo Borowski retired, right? Well, what's he doing now? Is he?
Bo Borowski.
Yeah.
What was it? Saturday Night Live. I'm sorry to interrupt. There was a skit that they did on Saturday Night Live, and it was like they were always. It was a name just like Bo Borowski. He was a sales guy. I'll look that up while you guys finish that out. But
what's Bo doing now, though? Because Bo is one of the best in the Big Ten. Yeah,
he did retire. I think he is involved in a business that might be related to officiating that took off for him, and I think he felt like he'd taken enough laps around the Midwest in the winter, and he'd worked the Final Four and. Bo's a great guy. I really like him. Miss him around the gym, but I believe it was something like that. I can't remember specifically what it was, but there was some sort of interest that he had in some sort of officiating oriented business.
Yeah, because that's the thing, Jim. These guys are independent contractors. I mean, they're like like Doug Shows does real estate on the side, I think, or whatever. They're not. It's not a full-time thing. I think that people forget that. Yeah.
But some of them make it a full-time thing, though, because they bounce between doing a Big Ten game one night, ACC game another night.
Yeah, and that's a problem. I think that the issue that college basketball officiating in particular has. I mean, college football officiating doesn't have this because you work like it's all the games are on Saturday, just about. So so you work one game a week, and maybe you might work like if you're here in the Midwest, maybe you might work a midweek MAC game, maybe. But how many are doing that? Not very many. But in basketball, you're bouncing all across the country at times. I've seen guys work Pac-12 games on one night, and then maybe two nights later they're working on the East Coast. That sort of thing I don't think is ideal for efficacy in officiating. And basketball, college basketball is the one sport in which that's most prominent. NBA, you work for one league. They try to make it so that you're able to be, you obviously have to travel because there aren't designated Indiana Pacers refs, but you have to travel, but they're not, they're trying to make it so that you're always fresh enough to do an effective job. College basketball, you might work for the Big 12 and then work also for the Big East. And so think about it now with the way it's Lubbock to Providence. If you work those two leagues, that's how you could be in that disparate location to work games.
We've got to take a quick break. The great Mike DeCourcy from Sporting News and Big Ten Network is with us, as is K-Bro, making a return engagement. We're brought to you by our good friends from Endeavor Hospitality, part of Go Team. Whether if you're always on the go, whether it's you, your kids, or the team, it's hard to find fresh, tasty food that's convenient, easy to eat on the fly. Go Team was created for go-getters like you. You can find it at BB's Marketplace or just pick them up online at goteam.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's the deal.
Hey, Jim, what's the link you sent me?
That's that Saturday Night Live skit that I was trying to think of.
Bo Porosky.
I can't believe you never saw this, Kevin. You're the king of sending me stuff like that.
I know.
Are you wanting me
to you the thing about the alternate ending of It's a Wonderful Life, which is one of my favorites. Yeah.
From Saturday Night Live.
Remember, yeah, Saturday Night Live. Dana Carvey does Jimmy Stewart. He's great. Yeah.
He sends that to me every year. It's every year he sends me that stuff, crap like that. There's did you ever see what we're talking about, the alternate ending to what's the name of the movie? Miracle.
It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah,
It's a Wonderful Life, rather. And he's playing Jimmy Stewart. Well, wait a minute, you son of a bitch! You cheated me here. Hey, hold on. Complete departure.
John Lovitz plays Potter in the wheelchair, and they knock him over, and he ends up walking. Unbelievable.
Oh, Mike, what's next for you, sir?
They're just continuing to do the same stuff. Brackets. We're gonna have our we're gonna do like that thing where you take a look at college basketball for all the people who've been breaking down game film Monday to Friday because they don't have time to watch both football and baskall. That idea.
My guess is you don't have Florida in your brackets. They're kind of 8 and 7. Yeah, Todd Golden. It's been a little. Although they have LSU, they did beat Georgia at home. They finally got the SEC win they needed, but they're going through some growing pains.
I do have Keontae Johnson in my bracket, though.
Yes, as a matter of fact, yeah, we can get because we can get that out of the break. I am quite popular in Manhattan, Kansas, right now. Because I ranked K-State number 4 in my poll this week. People.
There you go. There you go.
Basketball.
Yeah. Yes. 13-1. They beat Baylor and Texas back. They put 116 on Texas.
Both in back-to-back road games.
Mine, yeah. So I had people trying to set me up on dates with their wives. I mean, it was strange.
Wow. You've reached a whole nother level, man.
I know. It was like the weirdest thing yesterday on Twitter because
you have actually become K-Bro.
Yeah. These things have,
All right, here we go.
Your spouse, friends, or coworkers, Feast Market and Cellar offers an extensive wine selection with a sommelier on staff to help you with your selections. Feast also provides a wide variety of cheeses, gourmet sandwiches, entrees, a coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast Market and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Tuesday, January 10th, as we have Mike DeCourcy from Big Ten Network and the Sporting News, along with K-Bro making a return engagement. Mike's working on brackets, as that we're getting into that time of year where it kind of starts to matter. Not really matter, but it's January.
Matters to me.
Well, yes, I meant.
It matters to a lot of people. People like that stuff. Yeah.
Oh no, they love it because it's very fluid but it's accurate.
Providence beat UConn last week, so they went in my bracket, they went from like a first 4 game, because they did very little in non-conference. So they went from like a first 4 game to a 10 seed. And the first Providence fan reaction I got from that was that I was a moron. Okay. So, and I'm like, okay, so the guy who was the leading voice in Sporting News naming Ed Cooley, Providence's head coach, the Sporting News national coach of that year last year, he's a moron. Okay.
No,
one. And 2, I was the only media bracketologist that had Providence as a 1 seed at any point last year. But he's a moron too. So it's interesting how one goes from, hero to moron in such a short period of time.
How quickly they forget. How quickly they forget. Meanwhile, I'm voting on the AP top 25. I'm quite popular in Manhattan, Kansas, because I had Kansas number 4 in my poll this week, and people went nuts on Twitter. People were, telling me, come to Kansas City. I'll hook you up at this Italian restaurant. You can go out with my wife. I mean, it was like crazy, the reaction I got. And but Jerome Tang has done a heck of a job there. And the Florida transfer, Keontae Johnson, great story. Obviously, 2 going on 3 years ago, collapses on the court. He's averaging 18 and 8 rebounds.
He's played an All-America level. Kevin, am I right that Florida basically said, we don't want to take the risk with you? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
They
Kick
would
rocks,
not clear
baby.
him.
Go kick
They
rocks,
wouldn't clear
baby.
him. I mean, I don't know. It's understandable. I think it's understandable. I think it was best for all parties because, UF Health is quite popular in this, I learned from covering higher education in Florida that there's only one entity in this town in Gainesville that's more powerful than UF Athletics, and it's UF Health, Shands and the health system. And they were just not going to clear him. And they had an incident probably 20 years ago with Aras Ratan, who died of heat stroke. And I think the lawsuit was something in the neighborhood of $5 million at that time. So they did not want to take on that risk. They did not want to take on that liability risk, and they let him move on. But I guess it's very similar to Jared Butler, right, at Baylor, who Alabama wouldn't clear him, and he went to Baylor. He had a heart issue, and it was the same thing. And then he went on to Baylor, and he won a national championship. But can you really fault Alabama, for letting him go? I don't know. I just think it's one of those dicey situations.
Yeah, I just was curious. I wanted to make sure I was correct on the facts. I'm not being critical or I think everybody has to make their own decision about what's the best course to follow. And we've seen athletes come back from cardiac issues in the past. Christian Eriksen with the Danish football team, he collapsed during the Euros in 2021, and he's back as a player. He played in the World Cup, we've seen them come back from that in the past, but each entity has to be comfortable with the decision that they make in that circumstance.
And then I'm curious, the Big Ten picture first of all, it's changed so much, but that was because of mostly all of us making guesses on teams because we didn't truly know what everybody was going to be like. But Purdue still looks to be the class of the Big Ten, but there's no true great team. I don't consider Purdue great because they're absolutely beatable, and there's just doesn't seem to be that team that really. Although Purdue stands out more than the others, but not. I know that it's hard to say that even though they were ranked number 1 for the last few weeks, they just don't. I don't see them winning a national championship.
Yeah, one thing I'd say, Jim, is that I spoke on Saturday. I looked at the league standings and I noticed that every single team in the league, all 14 teams in the Big Ten, had a loss. And I think no one at that point had more than 3 wins. So you're basically 4 games into the Big Ten season and everybody has a loss. So Harold Shelton, the elite researcher at Big Ten Network, I immediately emailed him and said, have we ever had this? Like, is this a record or, and so is it a dumb question to ask? And he said, no, it's not, because we just looked that up, and it's been we've covered 20 years, and we haven't found a circumstance where everybody in the league had a loss that early. So in at least 20 years, one could say this appears to be the most balanced Big Ten, that you would have everybody in the league with a loss after essentially 4 or 5 games. So I do think that Purdue is outstanding, and they've only lost 1 game to date in any competition, and they've played Duke, etc. So they've played good opposition. Gonzaga they beat, and then of course the solid teams, high quality teams they've beaten in the Big Ten as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this league race develops, without a doubt. And if you're Indiana and you're searching for everything at the moment, you can know that even though you're struggling, you're not out of contact with the leaders in the league. So if you can get it turned, perhaps you can recover back to the level that you had aspired to earlier in the year.
I'm going to tell you on the SEC side, this kid Brandon Miller is pretty special. 19 and 8.5 rebounds a game. Nate Oates is a pretty good coach. I mean, you're talking about a Final Four team. Maybe this is finally the year that Alabama breaks through, because they look real, and they just took it to Kentucky the other day. They look really darn good, and they're a team that's going to be, I think, laying in the weeds. And I saw UConn play in person. I was very impressed with what Danny Hurley's doing. I mean, I like what they're doing as well. So those are a couple of teams that I kind of look at right now early. And I disagree with you on Purdue, Jim. I just think the way Edie's playing right now, I think this could be Matt Painter's year. And Braden Smith has been obviously better than advertised. And, it's kind of ironic that Indiana went out to get Hood Schifino, and Braden Smith is playing as well at the point. I mean, he's playing great.
And it would have crawled to Bloomington to play at IU.
I was looking, as Braden, we had the Purdue Penn State game on Big Ten Network on Sunday evening, right before Big Ten basketball and beyond. So I was looking up, okay, so what was Braden Smith recruited? What was he rated coming out of high school? I believe it was 196th, and he was the 33rd point guard in the class of 22. 33rd. There's 32 guys out there better than him. That's what. Look, I'm not criticizing the recruiting analysts because I know a lot of them, and but I mean that every now and then one sneaks through the cracks, and that was Braden. I don't think anybody other than Matt Painter realized what he was getting, because if you look as well, not just it wasn't just Indiana. I mean, if you look at his recruiting profile on 24/7 Sports, I think it was Montana, somebody out west, like Montana or Wyoming. There was Toledo. There wasn't a great push for Braden Smith. And, you look at Braden, I mean, he's only like 5'11". He's not super big. But, man, he can ball. I mean, he is a tremendous college basketball player, only 15 games into his season. He goes into Ohio State and dominates, has the key interception, so to speak, or intervention, knocking the ball away from Bryce Sensabaugh on the final play for Ohio State. Then he goes into the Palestra, the 2 road games in a row against Big Ten contenders. And he's one of the 3 best players on the floor as a freshman who was rated 196. That's just astounding.
The
Fletcher Lawyer's not a bad guy too.
Well, I was going to say, between Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith, they have been freshmen of the week in the Big Ten a total of 5 times.
Yeah,
that's
and Braden,
that was and that was in like the first 7 weeks, I think.
Braden didn't play in the Indiana All-Star game. I mean, he had some leg issue, so I was thinking going into the season, all right, they're going to move him along slowly because he has a leg issue or whatever. And here he is, playing great. And Fletcher Lawyer, was Fletcher Lawyer even an Indiana All-Star? Or no, I don't remember seeing him in that game. Or was he? Or
I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember exactly who was all on the roster. But getting back to the Big Ten, Mike, Indiana, one of the teams that was considered a favorite. Now we have to look at the fact that they have not finished higher than 9th in the last 6 years and wondering, are they going to be able to break that streak this year with where they are right now, how the team is trending? Injuries aside, the defense had taken a step down and was going down. Then the injuries hit. It got worse. They don't seem to have an offensive identity, although you have 2 great players in Trace and Jalen Hood-Schifino. We saw that can't carry you even against a mediocre team like Northwestern.
Well, I think, first of all, I think that they lost the 2 most important components of their defense, which has been devastating. And I don't think that the reaction of the initial reaction of the coaching staff to get small rather than insert Malik Renew into the starting lineup, they went with a smaller group, and that really. They really struggled defensively. Geronimo, in particular, on the defensive end, has really struggled. And so when Race went out, I didn't think getting small worked well against Iowa, and then they came back with it against Northwestern. That was a decision that puzzled me. And ultimately, they went in that direction. But by then, the game had kind of been established. I mean, they were trying to dig themselves out of a hole that was established by Northwestern very early. So eventually they got pretty good play out of Renew, and he played, I think, 24, 25 minutes on Sunday. But again, they were never able to dig themselves out of the hole that happened because of the decision to go smaller early. I think that hurt them. And the offensive identity thing, it's hard to say, okay, well, we were going to be a multi-point guard look, 2 elite point guards, 2 elite college point guards out front, and what that causes to defenses, what the problems that causes for defenses. They'll have to cope with that, and they did for 6 games or whatever it was before Jalen got hurt, or they failed to do that until Jalen got hurt, and then all of a sudden Indiana has to invent a new offensive identity. That's not easy to do, the one problem with making that their look, and I'm not arguing with making that their look, because clearly Xavier Johnson and Jalen Hood-Schifino were 2 of their 3 or 4 best players. So you have to play those guys together. That's what you designed. But the problem is if you don't have one of those guys available, and they have missed both of them basically since the 2nd, 3rd week in November. They've been without one or the other. If you don't have one or the other, then you have to find a new identity. And I thought that coming out of the injury, the Christmas break, that they had enough time to establish a new identity. And what's lost is that they did. They were crushing Iowa over the course of the first half of that game until Race got hurt. They were destroying Iowa on the road in a game Iowa needed as a get well game. But when Race got hurt, then they had to reinvent themselves on defense, and they just couldn't do both at once. So I have sympathy for IU, but unfortunately, athletics doesn't, it doesn't really accommodate much sympathy. I mean, because, well, too bad. Now you got to go play Northwestern, and they're the third best defensive team in the country. And now you got to go play whoever's next. I haven't looked at the schedule. There's just no breaks. So you have to figure it out. But I would be surprised if Indiana came out in their next game with a small lineup. And if they did, I think that sympathy would start to dissipate, because you're making a choice at that point. You're making a choice to go with what clearly didn't work in the second half versus Iowa, first half versus Northwestern.
One question I don't wonder why a certain player is not playing or not playing more. I just assume, I'm like, you know what? I'm not in the locker, or I'm not in the practice. I'm not in the locker room. So that's something I kind of stay away from generally. But one thing that is, I'm starting to wonder is I look at, Purdue and the fact that they've been able to get Caleb First. He's a starter on this team. Well, Caleb First is the guy that Logan Duncombe would routinely get the best of when they were playing the AAU ball. What has happened with the development? Why one player is starting on the number one team in the country, the other one can't find the floor. And they need a player like that right now, especially with the loss of Race. But I'm like, okay, is it the defense? What is it? It's got to be something, but that's a disparity that I wonder about.
Yeah, that's hard for me to judge, because Logan's played so little, and I've not been in Indiana's practice, and he's played so little that I couldn't tell you. I don't know how effective he would be if he did. I can't say why aren't they using him more, because I haven't seen enough of him to say anything. But I understand your point that he was a reasonably highly regarded prospect, top 75 coming out of Cincinnati, well coached in high school. I know those guys down at Muller in Cincinnati, and so I know how good they are. So he had to come mentally prepared to play college basketball, but I can't answer the question of why he's not out there more.
Development, right? That's what Painter's programs do so well. They develop guys.
And you just mentioned Jordan Geronimo, we're not seeing that development from either. And because
he was on the come late last year, though. I thought, remember the Wyoming game in the tournament, and in the Big Ten tournament, his defense. I mean, he was a guy that I thought got a little better last year. What's happened this year, you think?
I can't explain it, but I mean, he's been out of position defensively so frequently that it's obvious. I mean, guys are driving by him for layups, and then one of the things that you're not seeing is, as guys go by him, you're not seeing rotation happen at the level that it needs to happen to account for, everybody has guys get beat, but against Indiana, if you beat somebody, you're getting to the rim. And that's been a persistent problem. And it was a terrible problem at KU when they lost down there. It was a massive problem at Iowa. And then it was a problem again on Sunday against Northwestern. I mean, if you went back and charted the open layups that opponents are getting against the Hoosiers in those games, I mean, it's very rare. You guys watch enough college basketball. It's very rare for guys to get an open layup. It's a couple of times a game. And I'm talking about in a half-court setting. I mean, transition's one thing, but in a half-court setting, it's very rare for a guy to take the ball all the way from the three-point line on the wing to the rim. It's very rare, because somebody's either diving in front of you to take a charge, or they're trying to come over and challenge your shot, depending on the nature of the opposition. But IU's not getting those guys getting in front to try to take away the shot. It's not all Jordan's problem in terms of getting beat because he's out of position. It's also the problem of the team defense, where guys are not, they're not sacrificing themselves, so to speak.
Because Hood Schifino, I thought coming out of high school, was going to be an elite defender. Has he been that, or has he been a guy that's kept guys in front of him?
I don't think so.
No. I mean, at times, that's what he was billed as. I mean, his defense was really.
I don't think
a couple times the other day.
they've had other problems that are more severe than that, but you don't see the help defense from IU. At least you haven't. I again, speaking for that second half against Iowa and the Northwestern game, particularly in the first half, it's that help defense has not been there at the level it needs to be. And you can't constantly have Trace coming over and trying to fix everybody's mistakes, because he's got to be on the floor, and I think that's part of it. But that's part of the reason why you have to use more big bodies out there. Because it can't just be Trace that comes over. And again, sometimes it's got to be a wing player too. I mean, most charges are taken by perimeter players, so it's not a question of just Trace coming over to help. It's where are the help side wings, the help side guards to try to get in there. And again, when that ball starts going downhill, get in there and try to draw the charge. We aren't seeing that from the Hoosiers at the level you need to, or that's why Northwestern has the day they had as one of the poorer offensive teams in the league to put up those kinds of numbers. And then Iowa, which is an elite offense, but they went beyond. I mean, their second half performance against the Hoosiers was next level Fran McCaffrey offense.
Mike, what's up next for you, man? I know you got to continue working on the brackets and your duties with BTN.
Yeah, and of course, sporting news. We're going to do, since the college football season ended last night, about 10 minutes after kickoff. Catch up deals. Let everybody who's, I always laugh because I chuckle that people can only concentrate on football until football is done. I understand. First of all, nobody schedules basketball games when there's football games going on. So you don't have to watch them both at once. You don't have to decide between the two. And there are lots of basketball games on Monday to Friday. So what are you doing? Are you breaking down game film of Saturday's football game? Is that what you're doing, that you can't watch a hoop game? So, but we are going to address those who are just coming late to basketball season.
Make sure you give him a follow and go to the sporting news. Follow Mike DeCourcy. He is one of the best. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks, Jim. Great to see you, Kevin. Always a pleasure. But your Jets,
sorry about my Jets. They didn't do it for you.
Thanks.
Anybody that relies on the Jets has other problems in life. The great Mike DeCourcy joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by our good friends from Barber Pop Real Estate Services. If you're down in the Louisville, Southern Indiana, Floyd, Clark, Harris, and Scott County areas, make sure you reach out to Barbara at barberpop.com, or our friend Matt at Matt Lincoln, Matt at barberpop.com. They've served those communities for 3 decades, and no one will get you in the home you want better, quicker, faster, or less expensive. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda.
Your buddy Brew just responded to a Ted Cruz tweet.
In a combative way, I'm just deciding which way.
He was rational, but he was like, it was about the IRS agents that were monitoring Venmo transactions, and he says, "I agree, we need more border security, but we also need proper immigration laws that are forceful and humane. Work together to get that done. IRS agents should go after wealthy businessmen who steal billions."
Who said this?
Those thieves. Tom Brew. He's getting political.
I'm like, what? Yeah.
Good old Tom.
Your
We'll
buddy
be back down here doing the Rays in the spring, I guess. Yeah.
probably won't wait till then.
Not with the way Indiana basketball's going.
Yeah.
They'll still figure it. They still have the Xavier win on their resume. They have the North Carolina win.
Well,
Xavier win has turned out to be a pretty good win.
I think they'll get Race Thompson and Xavier back.
When do you think?
I think Race will be back sooner than Xavier, but I think that they both will come back sometime in February.
But Mike is right. They should start Renew. I mean, Xavier was one of their
Why?
best wins.
Why not? But Renew he gets in foul trouble so fast because he's so slow. He's a step slow on everything. He fouls out because he's always behind, and he picks up 2 fouls in the first 2 minutes of every damn game.
Oh, he does. Okay. Well, I didn't. I just remember the Xavier game when he altered that shot. I mean, he was really good down the stretch of that game. That's one of your best wins.
Yes, but see, that's the problem. Ever since that game, that player has not been on the floor.
Okay. I'm not following it closely enough. I know the Gators wouldn't mind having him. You know, everyone was trying to build up this guy, Alex Fudge, who was a transfer from LSU. He's been a freaking bust. And, you know, I mean, he's been up and down. He's had a few double-doubles, but he hasn't been great. But Colin Castleton has carried the load, but he's leading the SEC in block shots. His stat line the other day was 12, 5 assists, 8 rebounds, and 7 blocks. It's pretty good floor game.
Pretty good.
Yeah. I forgot to ask Mike about the Texas A&M game I covered last week where the team forgot their jerseys.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever seen that?
No, what happened?
I heard someone talk about it.
They wear the practice jerseys or the other teams?
I wrote the story. Got picked up on USA Today. Yeah, Texas A&M, they forgot their jerseys. We can talk about that. And they had to delay the game for 15 minutes, yeah.
That's right. It's the fastest, simplest, and easiest way to avoid decision fatigue. You pick your plan and pick up at BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. John, the producer, bringing us back. What's that movie with the two guys from Saturday Night Live?
Night at the Roxbury.
Man.
Yeah.
Night at the Roxbury.
I was trying to get
and Chris Kattan, right? Yeah.
I was trying to get Kevin to jump in there because that's what that reminded me
What
of.
is love, right?
Roxbury.
What is love, baby? Don't hurt.
Oh boy, you think I'm bad? Don't
What
give
is
him the
love?
reason.
Yeah.
Don't give him the reason. He'll cut it loose.
No.
He'll cut it loose. How's the karaoke down in Gainesville?
I mean, it's good, you know, but I've been so busy. I'll tell you, man, it's been just a grind. It was a grind during football season. It's starting to lighten up now during basketball season, but football season was a grind. There was a lot of work and there was a lot of travel. And I got to go to Vegas last month, which was certainly fun. But, you know, the Gators obviously didn't show up. They lost that bowl game. It was like one of the worst bowl games. That Florida had a scoreless streak, right? It goes back to 1987. So I don't know if you saw this in the Vegas Bowl. They kicked a field goal with 20 seconds left, down 30-0 to keep that streak going. And I had Oregon State fans tweeting me, and they said that is like bunting in a no-hitter with two outs in the bottom of the ninth.
Yes.
It was 3rd and goal, but they were sacked twice. So it was from the 24. I guess it's understandable. Like if it was like 3rd and goal from the 3 or the 4 yard line or 4th and goal, I could see going for it. But, you know, Napier kind of, you know, Billy Napier, the football coach, kind of explained it that it was, you know, one of those things where, you know, you bring the kicker out for some work, you know, and keep that.
I kick a touchdown.
Which I think it's at 436 games in a row or something. They haven't been shut out since 1988 against Auburn. So yeah, going on 35 years or where they have not been shut out in a game, Florida. And it's the longest in FBS, apparently.
Did Lee Corso retire officially from Saturday game day?
I don't know. You know, he was at the, you know, we would call it, he was kind of in and out during the course of the season. You know, Pat McAfee is doing it now.
Well, I know. That's the best move they could have made. My God, he's
so entertaining.
Oh, my. Anybody that didn't – Fox screwed up by not picking him up.
Yeah.
They should have picked him up.
I don't know if you saw the game day when he did the backflip into the Tennessee River. I mean, that was crazy.
You know what? Yeah. He's just hilarious.
During Duvall's, you know, game, he was with the Vol Army down there because that's a really cool thing for Tennessee. They all park their boats in the Tennessee River across from the stadium and do that and stuff. That's a great atmosphere down there. So,
yes, it is.
I also covered a college basketball game. This is an interesting story. Texas A&M last week, where Texas A&M forgot their jerseys for the game. That's a first. I don't think I've ever seen that. They were in their practice jerseys. They went back to the locker room, and they couldn't find their jerseys. Apparently, the student managers left them in the hotel. Buzz Williams said, "Oh, they were in my room." He was trying to protect the student managers and stuff. But they had to delay the game for 15 minutes. And Todd Golden, the Florida coach, his first year guy, kind of, I wouldn't say completely used as an excuse, but they did come out flat in the first half. I mean, it's 34-23 at halftime. They lost 66-63, but the game was delayed 15 minutes because they forgot their. Have you ever seen that where a team forgets their jerseys to a game?
Oh yeah, all the time. Or
Really?
a team may or a team may show up with a jersey that says Indiana on it.
Is that high school games and stuff? Or
no, that one would have been Indiana, at Nebraska or someplace. One of the players came out of the tunnel wearing a shirt that said Indiana.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
But that happened, man. It's not like it happens every day, but teams have had to play in practice jerseys. They've had to play in the opposing team's road jerseys or whatever. What did they eventually do to rectify that situation?
No, I mean they went back to the hotel and they got the jerseys. They got the regular jerseys. So.
Oh, they just left them at the hotel.
Yeah. So
I thought you meant they left them at home.
No, they left them at the hotel, so they had to run back and get them, and it delayed the start of the game by about 10 minutes. So, and they were assessed, and Texas A&M was assessed a technical before the game, an administrative technical foul, which Florida hit before the opening tip. So Florida had a 1-0 lead before the tip, but it didn't help them because the rest of the half they didn't play very well.
What? I'm just trying to read this. I don't know what that's about, so I'll leave that alone. Indiana expectations. We got to take a break. Chronic Hoosier is going to join us next. Kevin Brockway, K-Bros with us right now. Brought to you by our good friends from Metalworks Brewing Company, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Network, where you can each and every all the restaurants, of course, will serve you the great beers from Metalworks Brewing Company. But you can go right to the source. Metalworks Brewing Company is the culmination of a passion for beer, food, and metal art, alongside a desire to be actively involved in the community. You can find them at each and every Endeavor Hospitality restaurant, or like I said, right at their own location, right off of the square, off of 6th Street in Bloomington, catty corner to Cabello Restaurant. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Chronic Hoosier right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home... Did you see Jared Jeffries won a car on
Price is Right?
Price is Right?
Yes.
That was hilarious.
Chronic Echo is really bad right now. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah.
Oh.
I
And
can hear
Antoine Davis is in the 3,000 point club. And climbing.
Let me check something here. No, echo cancellation's on. Chronic, can you hear us?
I got you. What's going on today, guys?
He doesn't have an echo on his end. But
it's the speaker of us coming through on his end that's really coming through.
Both of us do.
Maybe just turn the volume down. Maybe.
Yeah, it's going to be really intrusive.
Or go out and just come back in.
I don't know if it'll solve it. I think it's a speaker.
Well, we'll find out.
All right.
Yeah, have him come back in. Chronic, can you go out and come back in?
Yeah, no problem.
We'll try to get rid of this echo.
I wonder if he got a new phone or anything, because this sort of happened last time he was on as well, but it wasn't as bad. But he said he didn't do anything differently. I'm curious if he's connecting with a different device than he used to. All right, let's check this out. All right, let's test this. Yep, still there.
It actually sounds better on my end. No.
Okay. Well, it's down. It's less than it was. I barely hear it now.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah.
It's weird how it does that, or whatever it's doing.
How's Chronic?
I have that effect on technology. Full disclosure. I don't have to be in the room and I can still fuck it up.
I hear you. I hear you, brother.
Chronic, when do you head back down to Florida?
Florida's probably going to be a minute. I think we're next booked in October. We've got a bunch of stuff this spring and summer that's kind of eating up some of my time. So it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do the late spring, early summer trip this year.
How's the dog doing with diabetes?
He's dumb as all fuck.
All right, here we go, guys.
Come taste with Dr. Hops' Brewing, Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. For Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you here on this Tuesday. Chronic Hoosier joins us now. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me back.
Always a pleasure. Hoosier's brought to us by Andy Moore Honda, the number one Honda dealer around. Go to andymorehonda.com and you're going to find some great deals. I bet you'll find some great ones on 2022s right now. Great time to get those. Chronic, did you see Jared Jeffries win his car on The Price is Right?
I did. I'm kind of bummed I didn't get a chance to watch it live. I saw the replays of it. He had posted something on Instagram. I think it was Sunday night that he was going to be on The Price is Right. Like he was going on, like he knew he was going to be up front. And at first I thought it was just like there's no, like, what the hell's Jared Jeffries doing on Price is Right? Lo and behold, he's winning cars, man. I'm not sure he can fit in that car that he won, but pretty cool scene to see JJ taking home some hardware even in these later years.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll give that car to charity or something, I would imagine. But just funny, he still had moves, man. He took off running. I'm like, damn, he could score against IU's defense right now.
I'll tell you what, man, you can take a look at any former Hoosier and any former IU basketball player. I dare you to find another alum that's living a better life than JJ is. He's just absolutely slaying it. I mean, dude's got a fishing show. Come on. Like, that'd be like you getting hired to be a professional golf TV personality. It's insane. JJ's always out there having a blast. Awesome to see. My dude, he's like me though. He's got a teenage daughter. My guess is he's putting that girl in that brand new ride, because Lord knows they ain't cheap. I'm in the market for one myself right now.
I don't know.
Something cool. Go ahead, K-Bro.
He's a lottery pick, right? He saved up his money really well. I don't know. I just think there should be a cap on game shows income. Okay, 100,000 single, 150,000 family, so that someone that wins a car, can appreciate it. You know what I mean? It's a life-changing thing for him.
Man, everything is rigged, Kevin.
I know, right?
Everything is rigged.
Working class stiffs, you know what I mean?
No, he literally left. If I'm not mistaken, JJ was a VP in the Nuggets organization and left to go lead an esports company. I mean, again, just absolutely living the best life.
No. Happy for him. No, that was a nice moment, don't you think?
And I'm sure because he's a little bit younger than me, but we're pretty close in age. We grew up on that, man. So like for your mom, your family, your aunts, to see you on TV and that, even though he's been on TV, in the NBA and college and everything else, dude just conquers everything he touches. It's awesome.
Antoine Davis, son of former Indiana coach Mike Davis, who's up at Detroit Mercy. He is in the 3,000 point club and currently 6th all time in NCAA scoring, Chronic.
It's crazy. You want to talk about getting old real quick, man. I remember seeing that kid running around Assembly Hall in diapers, in actual diapers. I saw him change his diapers at the scores table, or have his diapers changed, rather. It's just absolutely insane to me that, talk about living your best life, playing for your dad, just setting every record ablaze. Awesome to see. Couldn't happen to a better kid, to a better family. Lord knows we could have used that in the transfer market this year, but it is what it is. Happy for Twan, happy for Mike, obviously, and their whole family. Pretty cool to see.
Okay, bro. If you recall, Mike Davis' son, Antoine, he grew up around some IU greats, around a great time. Indiana went to the national championship. It's just so ironic that a kid that is not here or even around here is going to wind up in the top 5 of NCAA all-time scores, and that's an elite list, but is going to end up in the top 5 of all-time NCAA scoring list.
And I did a story on him over the summer, right before I left, about his NIL deal and how he shared it with the rest of his team, which I thought was a really cool gesture. And in interviewing him, he talked about the reason why he did that was because of the fact that, and I believe it was, he got a deal in China and they sold him on, Steph Curry was very popular, smaller school guy and he's closing in on Steph Curry's, I think, 3-point record or something like that. And it's a nice story because he talked to me a lot about how he struggled with NIL at a smaller school like Detroit when he first started. Then he became popular nationally. He got this deal, but he wanted to reward and help the rest of his teammates that were there to support him, which is a really cool thing.
Yep, absolutely. Very cool. Chronic, a little further south in Bloomington, Indiana, basketball, not exactly having the season that fans had hoped. A number of things are going into that. They weren't looking good. After beating North Carolina, it just went downhill from there. There just seemed to be this, I don't know, that look at us kind of a thing, and then they got punched in the face a few times. Then the injury bug hit them a little bit, but it's looking a little worrisome, long picture wise, for this season for this team.
That's looking a little bit beyond worrisome. I mean, I know Woody was on his radio show last night saying, it's not time to panic. That's not who he is. That's well and good, because me and those close to me are freaking the F out right now at just the prospects of where the season could slide to before it ever, at least the conference season, ever really gets, going in earnest for a team that was picked preseason to win the Big Ten. They're currently sitting at 1-3 right now, with very little signs of life, quite frankly. And it's remarkable how rapidly things turned on Indiana. I don't know what. I know Galen Clavio, a good friend of mine, astute IU mind, swears something happened between November 30th and December 3rd, because it's like a flip switched, and they went from a really, really tough team seemingly to pretty listless right now, to be quite honest with you. And it's unfortunate for a number of levels. Not the least of which because, as Xavier Johnson's absence has put more of a burden on Jalen Hood-Schifino to produce. He certainly answered the call, but now we're looking at a situation where, Fino's on track to play his way out of the Big Ten and into the NBA here real quick. And Indiana's going to be looking at a total, reboot basically in their backcourt for next year, in addition to their front court, because Race is going to be gone, Trace is going to be gone. What's going to be left except for a bunch of unfortunate L's this season, if they can't figure out a way to tighten it up? And as bad as the defense is, Indiana continues to shoot themselves in the foot offensively with the turnovers. The points they're allowing off the turnovers being the deciding factor, quite honestly, in 4 of their 5 losses. Just absolutely gave the game away by giving the ball away and allowing the other team to score way too many uncontested baskets. So even when they've had the spurts late, we saw it at Iowa, we saw it at Northwestern. Heck, we saw it against Arizona, where they were able to fight their way back in at the end. It's too little, too late. When you're surrendering 20 plus points, given off of turnovers, and usually they're happening, bad passes, lazy cutting, things that are totally preventable, unforced, but putting the defense in a position where they can never get back in transition to really contest, and just giving it up too easy. And we've seen this team struggle offensively at times. It's certainly been improved this year, but certainly not sufficient enough to account for how bad the defense has regressed. So I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure what the magic recipe is to get it back, but they need to find it. They need to find it fast, because tomorrow night's game at Penn State is not going to be an easy one. And, honestly, there's really no easy games left in the Big Ten for the remainder of the schedule for Indiana right now. And you're going to have to take, with maybe the exception Northwestern on the road. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that statement scares the hell out of me to think any win in the Big Ten on the road is going to be easy. But it's going to be a slog. And they have proven so far they're not fit for the fight right now. And the biggest thing is you've got to arrest that slide, because we have seen what happens, particularly with this group, when things go bad and it continues to compound, just how ugly it can get. And that's the absolute last thing Woody can afford right now, is to see all the wind go out of those sails, all the momentum, all the excitement he had built up around the program. That's how you lose out on future recruits. That's how the program continues to struggle. You just can't have that happen, and you've got to stop that by winning some games, and you got to start doing it soon.
Okay, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. And you brought up with Hood Schifino too, 3 to 6 assist to turnover ratio. That's where you miss Xavier, I think, in terms of, growing pains as a freshman point guard in the SEC, in the Big Ten, in terms of, dealing with that pressure, on-ball pressure, making decisions. It's not easy to ask a freshman to run an offense in a major conference. And for as good as he's been scoring, I mean, your main job as a point guard is to take care of the basketball.
Absolutely. And we'll have to see how that continues. Chronic, what's up next for you, my friend?
That's a great question, Jim. Hopefully get a little attitude adjustment tomorrow night, because there's nothing that can heal some wounds like a win on the road. And I think this team needs to do some soul searching and figure out what it's going to take to do that. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. Was Geo Baker right when he went on, I think it was Field of 68, and he, basically said Indiana's soft. They've had a reputation for being soft, even with all the accolades, they're still soft. He certainly looks a little prophetic in saying that, and they've got to find a way to channel some of that toughness out here, because quite honestly, they seem to wear that reputation all too well right now as being a team that's going to wilt when the pressure gets turned up. So I would imagine it's probably pretty intense in there. I was hanging out after the game on Sunday, talking with some friends afterwards. And in doing so, we were seated in the student section, or where the student section normally would be, since they were still on break. Technically, they had opened those seats up, and watching all the fans who line up afterwards to get autographs, and then seeing the ushers come out and tell you basically that coach has closed it. They're done. They're going home. They're not coming back out. They've got to get to a point where they're comfortable showing their face after the game again. And right now, justifiably, understandably, they ain't there, and they need to get that back. And the easiest way to do that is to go out and show the world who you really are and what you're capable of. And as we've seen, this is a team that can beat some really good basketball teams. We saw at the end of last year, we saw it quite a bit, I think, in November. Whatever it was that's left, they need to find a way to get it back and get some of that momentum back, because we're looking at a stretch here where, if this continues, they've moved from a top seed to now probably somewhere between 8 and 11, 8 and 12 seed. You don't want to find yourself in the same situation you were in last year, where you were scratching and clawing all February just trying to get on the right side of the bubble. But I don't know. I was that way in college myself. I needed a deadline. I needed that pressure in order to perform. I was a bad procrastinator, but you'd love to see this team figure out a way to get back on schedule and keep themselves squarely in the tournament talk, because right now they are trending in the absolute wrong direction.
One more quick question. Talking to Don the other day, one of the things that we came up or we talked about was right before they go in for the last time after warm-ups before the game starts. And I hate to pick on nitpicky stuff, really do. Race Thompson, Trace Jackson Davis, and Anthony Leal are usually out there trying to hit half-court bombs, playing around, which is cool, except for it's before every game. And that doesn't exactly give you the look that I'm locked in and focused on this game right now. I'm getting ready to walk into the locker room for the last time and come back out and play this game. That doesn't show me focus. That doesn't show me I'm in tune to what I've watched on the scouting all week. That's not telling me that. And it's not that I'm out from having fun. Have fun after the game. Win the game, then have fun. Do that stuff after the game. There's just not a complete, all bought in seriousness to me that I see from this team. Maybe it's just a generational thing.
It's easier to accept that jocularity when things are going well. I think, when things aren't going to script, when things aren't going to plan, we tend to get a little more critical. I grew up in a system where it was business. The minute you laced your shoes up, you're there to work. You're there to do work. It's business-like. And obviously the guys got to have fun. They're playing a game. If it's not fun, nobody's going to perform at their best. But, I would certainly love to see this team display a change of mindset. They've got to get back to being the hunter, that focus, that intensity. We talk about toughness and, yes, this team needs to be tougher, but it's not necessarily going out and punching somebody in the face as much as it is, keep your dang man in front of you. Hit your intended target with the pass where the pass needs to be delivered. There's a million little things that make for big impacts. And right now, Indiana is doing so many little things poorly enough, it's just costing them. And that's,
how about this product? Focus in
side.
And make free throws at the end of a game. That was with Trace. In the Iowa game.
No, absolutely. And it's real easy to look at those free throws. My section was going absolutely bonkers those final 4 minutes on Sunday with every missed front end of a one-on-one. And yes, that absolutely contributes. But so does every drop that ends up in the bucket over the course of time. That's where you get a final level. And, again, Indiana has been markedly sharper in the final 4 minutes than they have in the preceding 36. But there's not a single play in between start to finish that's any more or less consequential, because they all add up to a net sum, or a net difference, rather, depending on how you're looking at it. It's all those little things, though, up until that crunch time, that are putting them in that position where those become so consequential. And, maybe it starts before the tip, Jim. I don't know. I don't spend enough time around them outside the whistles to see what's going on. But something's clearly not clicking right now, and has been for some time, if we're being totally honest. And I don't know that there's a magic bullet to it. Eventually it's going to have to come from someone other than Trace and Jalen, though. That's become apparent, because the numbers those guys put up, and honestly, the team numbers just weren't that bad on Sunday.
They were tremendous, to be honest with you. They shot 50% on 18 made or 18 3-point attempts, 52% from the field. It's just, you cannot give up 24-0 on points off turnovers and a -9 differential at the free throw line. That's 33 points, baby.
That's everything right there. And that's where I started with this, is they've got to figure out a way to stop killing themselves with the turnovers. Free throws are up a little bit from last year, but it doesn't help a whole lot when the ones you need the most just aren't falling late. But again, it's all those little things that are adding up to some big disappointments for Indiana. So there's still plenty of basketball left to be played. Make no mistake, but they've got to get it figured out, because you cannot, I repeat, you cannot start January with 3, 4, 5 or more losses in a row and expect to have a reasonable chance of getting a seed again, unless you want to find yourself fighting to get back into Dayton, which quite honestly is more of a regression considering the talent increase that you had over last year than it is just a status quo. But this is starting to feel eerily spooky to IU football last year with the way in which they mishandled the expectations. And I would just absolutely hate to see that on the basketball side of 17th Street, because Lord knows we've seen what type of a hole that can get your program in and how difficult that can be to dig out of. And at least with basketball, it feels like we were just here a couple years ago, because we were, quite honestly. And they've got to find a way to keep from going to that place again.
Brother, we appreciate you. Look forward to it.
Hopefully we got some better moods and attitudes next week, guys. I can't wait to talk to you then.
Have a good one. Peace out. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Andy Moore Honda. Just go to andymorehonda.com where you can find the best in new and used vehicles. We're back with more K-Bro right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Well, we got through that somehow. Echo.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, because we started muting, like you said, that was a good idea.
It sure did the trick.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that Lamar Jackson and Stetson? Well, I should save this. Do you travel with the basketball at all?
No.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, but they're, like I said, they're 8-7. They're not the same. They're not the way they were under Billy Donovan. It wouldn't really be, and the audience, it wouldn't really be cost effective. I mean,
will you travel if they? I mean, I know they're not going to this year, but if they were like going to be in the tournament, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they were a top 25 team, we'd travel, but they're just not there yet. It's just different. Even since I left 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, I look at the O'Connell Center now. I mean, they used to get 10,000, 11,000, come close to sell out for SEC games. Now it's like they had a Saturday game, they had 9,000 in there. During the week, they have like 3,000 or 4,000 in games now. It's just the program has slid, and some of it was Mike White, and now it's Todd Golden, his first year. He's trying to pick up the pieces. I think he's a good young coach. I just think that it might take a little time. And the SEC is there. I mean, you're talking about the Big Ten, but the SEC right now, they've got about 5 or 6 teams in the top 25 too. They're no slouches right now.
Where did Todd Golden come from?
University of San Francisco. He was in the WCC. He was a guy who played under Randy Bennett at St. Mary's. So we talked a lot about, I was talking about that St. Mary's IU game, and everyone was blaming the jet lag and stuff. I thought it was more Randy Bennett doing a freaking great job on Trace Jackson Davis, who was tearing everyone up. You guys will use the jet lag as an excuse, but Notre Dame had jet lag too, and they went out and they won their game.
Nah, no jet lag's bull. Fritz, that's just for excuse makers.
That's what I mean. I think it was freaking Randy Bennett putting together a damn good game plan on Trace, who had been tearing it up. You remember those? He had like a 4 or 5 game stretch where he's averaging.
You can go now. That's the only way to shut him up.
With a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Coming to you here on this Tuesday. It's January 10th. Appreciate you joining us. K-Bro's with us in the house. Kevin Brockway, formerly on the Indiana beat, now with the Gainesville Sun, covering the Gators and the SEC. Earlier, I mentioned Logan Duncombe. I don't talk about why players aren't playing a lot, like I said, because there's a lot that goes into it. But Logan Duncombe is one that is on my mind. And Five Left says Logan's a post player. First was dominated by Logan because Caleb was having to play him in the post. That's not necessarily his role at Purdue. Caleb is a forward and more versatile. That's not the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is they have developed Caleb first where he can be a starter on the number one team in the country, on the number one team in the Big Ten. And Logan Duncombe can't find the floor. There cannot be that much of a disparity in those guys.
Didn't Trace say in the preseason that he thought Logan was going to have a big year or something?
Oh,
yes.
He
was going to be able to, really help him. And we saw it in Noblesville, if you remember, and I thought that, I thought he was a good rebounder. He ran the floor hard. He had a little bit of a mid-range game to him, and I don't know what happened.
He's not seeing the floor for one thing, but they need him because everyone, you've got Malik Renew, but Malik Renew has shown that he is not quick enough. He comes in and picks up 2 fouls like that. He's in foul trouble every game, and he's just going to have to pick up the speed at this level. Once we've hit Big Ten play or the competition ramped up, his play has gone down and it has not returned. But again, Logan Duncombe is a kid that he's been here 2 years already. If he's not going to, he won't be here a third, I can promise you, if he doesn't start seeing the floor. He will not be here again. He's looking at that. Believe me, he sees that stuff. It's just, I'm talking about player development. Purdue's able to take 2 freshman guards and start them right out of high school. They're starting on the number one team in the country. Player development, man.
Well, they're not number one, by the way.
Well, you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. They ascended to that. But it's, and I'm not saying that Purdue's going to go out and win a national championship, but they're pretty damn good. They've got some good pieces together, and they play their roles. That's another thing. I don't know that Indiana knows the players know their roles. Trey Galloway needs to be shooting the damn ball because Indiana doesn't have scores. Forget Miller Kopp. I guess he doesn't realize that his job is to score the ball, to shoot the damn ball. They're not taking shots.
He was 1 of 2 the other day, right? He's still taking his shot off. Yeah.
And he's shooting like 1,000% from 3, but he puts up 2 shots a game. It's you cannot have.
It's been kind of up and down, right? Has he been?
And Jordan Geronimo has been a complete. That's another talent development lack thereof. Where's his development? Where's his growth? He got the opportunity to start. Nothing. In minutes he comes in, he's not even defensively was his calling card because he's so athletic. But even defensively, he's gotten beat so many times. But the help defense is terrible on this team.
I'll give you the coach excuse line, and you hear this and there's a lot of noise in the system here about Billy Napier too in Florida football because very similar to Indiana basketball. But you hear this from coaches all the time that growth is not always linear. We think of growth as like, you should be ascending all the time, and there are kind of peaks and valleys to it. And maybe this is a peaks and valley thing with Jordan Geronimo where teams have adjusted to him and he's got to learn to counter adjust. And again, that, you got to develop him that way. But you would like to see that straight line ascension and development, but sometimes there are dips up and down the road with regards to that.
Well, especially when you talk about a team that was bragged about so much of being so deep, supposed to be so deep. They're supposed to be 8, 9, 10 deep. Well, they're not. I understand losing 2 starters, 5th and 6th year guys. Yeah, that hurts. But Good teams are prepared for that.
Yeah.
You prepare for that by developing your other players. And that's just not the case. Indiana comes out and they don't look. It's Jalen Hood-Schifino coming down the floor. Let's try to get the ball to Trace Jackson-Davis, or if not, then maybe I can create a shot. That seems to be the offense.
You need a third scoring option. Like Bates has to be that guy, I think. Like he's the guy that could profile to be that guy. You need that third consistent scoring option. Look, to me, there's no shame in losing to Kansas at Fog Allen. I mean, they're number 2 in the country now, defending national champion, even though they look like they've reloaded the way Georgia reloaded in football. There's no shame in even losing to Arizona and Vegas. Rutgers at the rack. I mean, that's a tough place to play. To me, the shame is losing to a bad Iowa team on the road when you had them, pretty much dead and buried, and then losing at home to North. Those are two inexcusable. To me, they should be 12-3 and not 10-5, even with the injuries. And they should be 3-1 in the Big Ten. And now they've created a hole for themselves that they've really got to dig out of.
And digging out of that hole is going to be really difficult because that journey will include all these road games that they haven't even gone to the toughest places that they have to go to yet.
Oh, there's a good comment about the jerseys where he said 10 to 15 years ago, Syracuse and UConn both showed up in white jerseys.
Yeah, Michigan played in the first round of the Big Ten tournament in practice jerseys because their jerseys were stuck on the plane when they had that crash a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't they go on to win that tournament, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Craziest. They had to play the first day, I thought, too. Yeah, that was nuts. Yeah, that's crazy. You want to talk about firing you up, man.
Yeah.
Let's see. There you go. IndyCar opens in St. Pete, March.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah, I should go down there. Yeah.
So there
come
you
down,
go.
Jim. We go to the cigar bar and,
count me in because, well, that's still early. Indiana will still be playing. Well, maybe that's close to the end of the season, isn't it?
If it's a Sunday, yeah, you just fly down on a Saturday night,
Dabney says Jared Jeffries' $22,000 car that he has now has to pay taxes, California emissions, plate fees, and all that stuff. Yeah.
Well,
it does. It ends up costing you money, man.
He has the money to afford it.
Why? He'll never drive that car. That's a
He
giveaway or
daughter. Give me the car, okay?
I don't even
give
what
Jim
kind
the
of
car. Jim needs
what
a car,
kind of
right?
what kind of car was it?
I mean, I looked to be like a Honda or a Hyundai or something like that. It was, yeah.
Probably came from Andy Moore.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough game for Indiana coming up tomorrow night. Oh, the Toddcast starts.
Is your buddy still working at Andy Moore Honda, the salesman? What was his name? The guy we used to see at Yogi's. Yeah.
But Rich is the man.
Yeah.
Rich is the main man. Shout out to Rich. Appreciate you, brother. What was I just saying right before that? The Toddcast. Toddcast tomorrow night, man. Something new.
Todd
Leary on the Toddcast. People can tune in just like they are right now, but they'll have to watch the game on their own television or listen to it on the radio, whatever they're doing. But Todd is going to be on the whole game and commenting as the game is being played.
So it'd be like a Manning thing. Yeah, it'll be like
exactly. You won't be able to see the game on our broadcast for obvious reasons, for rights, but it'll be just as fun, and you can interact. You can put your comments up and all of that, but you can actually see and hear. Maybe Todd will throw a bottle or something. Maybe he'll throw a chair. We have to get a chair. Get a chair for him.
Yeah.
Pool pond. You got a pool pond. Pond would be good for you.
Is Todd's son still playing at Carmel? Is he still, there?
Man, they're all out. They're all out. They gone. They gone, man. Life has moved on. Let's see. Trying to find any comments of anybody that's hit it. I get lost and miss a lot of the good stuff because then I'm always behind. You guys are loading up the comments. I appreciate you.
That's good.
But well, it is. I think it's time for a break anyway. John,
no. It's not. I had a question. Are we allowed to talk about what you sent me in the email yesterday?
What did I send you in the email yesterday?
Well,
I forgot.
I was going to say, there we go. You know
Two
what I'm
things.
talking about.
Actually, first, I want to play that skit.
It wouldn't play for me. The thing you sent me from Saturday Night Live, that link wouldn't work. I tried it out.
Okay. Well, all right. We'll have to pull up by a different. There's been several people referred to.
Bobrowski or whatever his name is.
Yeah. Bill Bosky or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd have to find that now. But if you can find that name in the comments, John, and just look it up, I bet you can pull up a different copy. But anyway, what were we talking about right before that, Kevin?
No, we were.
The one thing that you had something else you had to mention from the.
There was a clip. No, there's not a clip.
I know what I want to say, but I don't know if I can say it if you don't.
Oh, yes, I know what you're talking about. You got me confused. Okay, and then, did you know Lamar Jackson and Stetson Bennett are the same age?
It's amazing, right? You know that
Lamar's been in the league 5 years, won a Heisman Trophy. That's college sports today. That's not what we're talking about.
Well, with the COVID year and everything, and it's pretty. Well, Chris Wenke was 27 at FSU when he won the national championship right back in 1980. He was like a minor league baseball player, came back to school. And Andrew Gaze, I remember at Seton Hall when they were in 1989, he was like 27, 28 playing college basketball against 19-year-olds. Those anomalies, I think, happen during the course, and they're going to happen more now with, the COVID year and the 6th year of eligibility. And I guess if you have a medical red shirt, you could probably do 7 years, right?
Someone told me that there is someone out at like Oregon or someplace that is actually in a 9th year.
Somebody said that there's a friend of mine last night was saying that there's a football player at Buffalo, low FBS, right? I think they're, Mac, that's like 34 years old. It's playing linebacker. I mean, that's nuts. Yeah. Came back from the military or something like that. He's 34 years old. He's playing linebacker at Buffalo.
I thought that there was a certain time that you had to use this eligibility. Is it still, as long as the clock doesn't start until you start it?
I guess the clock doesn't start till you enroll. So I think this guy probably didn't enroll in college until maybe he was like 30 years old. Maybe he served in the military and, did some stuff and then decided, hey, look, I want to go back to college.
Well, we all want to go back to college.
I guess it's just a matter of a coach saying if a 30-year-old enrolled, could he be physically good enough to do it? And maybe this guy had the physical fitness and the endurance and the strength to do it, that you could have someone that old playing college football.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There's another guy at the Division III level, I think that's 48 years old too. I saw that on College Game Day. That's like close to our age that's doing
it. Crazy. What John was talking about, though, he had a little exciting news, waiting for it to become official, but I think we're picking up another affiliate up in the northwest corner of the state, the region, the voice of the region, the voice of the voice.
Yeah.
The voice of the region, WJOB, I can't speak. WJOB, looking forward to joining their family of lineup sometime soon. So, Highland, which is Hammond, Hammond, okay. Indiana, and into Chicago. So nice. For IU fans that are up in the Chicago area, you'll be able to listen to us on radio as well as this. And Chicago, we put, of course, it's a radio show, but we put it out on YouTube as well. And Chicago is like our third biggest market.
Yeah.
Lots of IU people up in the Chicagoland area.
Well, Kelly School of Business are all working up in the Windy City and making the money, but spending the money up there too, right? That's you
got it, man.
Making it and spending it, because that's we're gonna call it pretty expensive place to live.
What I cannot believe this show's almost over.
I know, man. It's like parting with sweet sorrow, right?
You make it just flew just because you were here. It flew. You've got to start coming back a little more frequently, like once a month. Give us a little treat.
I'm a busy guy, Jim.
A little treat. Oh, come on, a little treat. A little K-Bro goes a long way.
Maybe once a month. Yeah, maybe we can work something out. You never know. All right.
Okay, bro goes along. Hey, I don't like the glasses. He should have found some better glasses.
I've got to, I've got responsibilities, man.
Got responsibilities.
You do need to get a little neon sign of the K-Bro, kind of like it is in this image. You need to put that in your.
I need that to be in the studio background, baby.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But buddy, I can't thank you enough. You made it a blast. It was certainly good to have you on, and great to see you, and great to talk to you. Great to hear things are going well.
Yeah. No, I'm really enjoying it down here, and it's going to be 70 degrees this afternoon. So it's life in the Sunshine State. It's good to be back, and good to be back close to family and friends here. So it's nice, and having a good time, and but working hard, man. Covering the Gators is never dull. Trust me. It's like the Hoosiers, man. It's a very demanding gig, and but it's good to catch up with you guys, and good to catch up with all the peeps in Indiana. And I do miss the atmosphere at Indiana basketball a little bit, because like I said, I go in the O'Connell Center in Gainesville, and like there's maybe 6, 7, 9,000. Saturday games they had 9,000 people in there, but it's not the same as Assembly Hall. So I do miss that college basketball atmosphere that you don't get in the SEC, but obviously the college football atmospheres are a little different too.
Yes, they are, my friend. You can't have your cake and eat it too, I guess.
I know. So.
Well, buddy, we cannot tell you how much we appreciate you. Look forward to doing it again. Thank you so much. Thanks to Mike DeCourcy from Big Ten Network and the Sporting News, Chronic Hoosier as well, John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Most importantly, thanks to you guys and to all of our sponsors. Without all of you, we have no reason to be here. Make sure you support our sponsors. And until tomorrow, for K-Bro, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.